The Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA, and its parent ministry, the Ministry of Education and Youth, have recently moved to de-license the Sunbeam Children's Home, in keeping with the agency's zero-tolerance approach to all forms of child abuse. Joining us now via Zoom is Child Protection and Family Services Agency CEO, Laurette Adams-Thomas. Good morning, Mrs. Adams-Thomas. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Harris.
All right. So, I mean, it's our children. And so I think everybody was very concerned when we heard about what happened, but we wanted to get more details. When we say abuse happening with the children, what types of abuse are we referring to?
Well, in this case, I can only share with you that as it relates to Sunbeam, it's more physical abuse.
Okay.
That's really occurring there.
Okay. I wanted to understand the process. Is it that when you become aware of it, do you say to the children's home, listen, we hear that abuse is happening, there are some things that you have to address, and then if that's not addressed, then they become de-licensed? Or do you go in de-license and then have them work towards regaining the license? How does it happen?
All right. So in respect to the Sunbeam Children's Home, the cases of abuse were actually reported to the National Children's Registry from as far back as 2020. And so those matters that were reported would have been investigated, and they investigated by us, and they would have also been forwarded to the Office of the Children's Advocate to be investigated by them.
Mm-hmm.
Once that investigation would have been completed, we would have discussions with the management. And even before the investigations are completed, there would have been discussions with the management team. Because remember, I said we are going back as far as 2020. So during the period of 2020 to 2024, we had a number of reports coming in relation to child abuse that were investigated. The management team was made aware, and the matter, they were met with the chairman of the board of the home. We conducted, even as recent as last year, November, the behavior modification training with the staff at the facility. In addition to that, there was a meeting when I came on board in October. We had a meeting sometime in November with all the managers of childcare facilities across the island. And I utilized that opportunity to also remind them about the zero tolerance approach that will be taken in relation to child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so with all of this occurring and the reports coming back from the advocate confirming cases of abuse, our investigations confirming these cases of abuse, and then and knowing that the management is aware of these cases and that we would have tried to train the employees. And then as recent as January this year, 2024, another case had occurred that we had to forward to the police. Now, at some point, you have to do something. At some point, the children, someone has to speak for them. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to put forward the respective reports and the findings from our investigations and present it to the minister for review, because the CPFSA does not have the authority to
de-license. Mm-hmm.
We have to present the matter to the ministry, and the minister, who has the authority and is empowered by the Child Care and Protection Act, would have then reviewed the circumstances and make a decision as to whether or not she would agree with the de-licensing of the facility.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what occurred, and the facility was de-licensed. And what we're in the process of doing now is seeking an order from the court to have the children removed because we can't move them on our own without getting an approval from the court. And so that is where we're at now.
So I want to get back to this, but I also want to say you would have probably seen reports in the media where the management of Sunbeam has come out and said we basically there was no kind of communication as far as this was concerned. We didn't get those reports. We weren't advised. You are saying, from what I've heard, that that is not true. There has been consistent communication that there is an issue.
There have been communication about issues, plural.
Okay.
Right, about issues. And as I said, even without pinpointing that we are speaking about this particular home directly, when I came on board, one of the things I always try to do is to almost, if possible, where possible, give everybody a clean slate. And I will say, listen, these are the things that I was told were happening, but moving forward, you have to ensure that if this was happening before, it can't happen anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I ensured I met with all the managers of the childcare facilities. And I reiterated this zero tolerance approach that will be taken towards abuse. And then to see this type of abuse being inflicted on a child in January, where we had to take him to the doctor to be treated and also bring the matter to the police. It was just too much, you know? And looking back then at all of these cases coming in, the fact that we would have met with him about other cases that have occurred, you know, and to see that it is still continuing, whether it wouldn't have been just one staff we're talking about over a period of time. It's different employees. So
it seemed as if there was a culture. Yeah, it seemed as if, yeah. It seemed as if there was a culture of it there. I'm sorry I had to interrupt you because we're almost out of time, but I'm curious to know what has happened to the children. You said you can't, you would need a court order to remove them. Are they still physically at Sunbeam, or are they someplace else waiting on that court order to officially say they can be removed?
So there is a location that we are going to move them to. So for those who will be relocated to another childcare facility, we are ensuring that we keep them together so they will be at one child care facility, and we are waiting on the court order now to act and to move the children. But I also want to point out about a video that I received of yesterday in relation to what they consider to be a protest by the children. But when we listen to the video, we could also hear the children being coached, you know, to say you're not being abused. And the children are repeating, we are not being abused. Say you're being loved. And the children are saying, we are being loved. Say you don't want to leave. And the children are saying, we don't want to leave. To give the impression as if it's really the children who are protesting. But in truth and in fact, you could hear the adult in the background coercing the process.
Okay.
That's only causing further, confusion in the minds of these children. Many of whom have special needs and intellectual challenges.
Yes, it's another form of abuse, ma'am. I'm sorry I have to cut it because we have the news. But wow. We have to protect our children, and that's what I'm hearing you say. And once it comes to protecting our children, we support you.
May I be given the opportunity to remind the public to report our cases of abuse to our 211 number.
211. All right. Thank you very much. Child Protection and Family Services Agency CEO, Laurette Adams Thomas. Still to come, we head to the 44th staging of the National Leadership Prayer Breakfast.